A wonderful good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world, from me here at the primexpt.com Trading Academy Studio. My name is Dirk Hartig. I'm the head of trading education here at primexpt.com. And as always, 3 times a week, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, I have also the honor of being your host today. We have for today's last episode, at least for this week, probably for that crypto show, we have put together some really, really great and important content that we want to talk about. We are going to have a look at the market, the state of the market, what is going on, what is probably going to be going on the next days, especially over the weekend. How can you maybe think of positioning yourself in a market like this? And then we want to take a longer term perspective and talk about today why this is such an important time of a year. Actually, a situation like this, you only have every 4 years a Bitcoin where it's a make it or break it situation for a lot of the models out there that try to predict where the Bitcoin price could be moving. As always, before we start, our risk disclaimer. This webinar is brought to you and provided by the primexpt.com research team. This is educational content. This is not financial advice. We are trying to help you to clear all the information that is out there about trading, about Bitcoin, about cryptocurrencies, so you can make your own better informed trading decisions and hopefully become a better trader as well. Great. So the market yesterday or today actually took quite a plunge. So yesterday after the show we saw really some nice buyings there. So intraday there were some really nice candles. Let's zoom in maybe there into the hourly time frame. So I'm talking about here what happened really since pretty much around noon until the Americans came in, had some really nice candles, and it looked a little bit like Bitcoin wanted to tech the 50,000 again. But this morning we are seeing, since the early morning session again, we are seeing volatility spikes in the early morning European session in Bitcoin, something that we've seen quite a lot recently, in my opinion. It's trending downwards and massively so, I have to say. So this is quite a big move already, and you see this by this big red candle. And if you tuned in yesterday, you might remember that I said I wouldn't be surprised if we minimum attack this middle section of the Bollinger Bands. I also wouldn't be surprised if Bitcoin wants to at least try to attack the moving average, the 200 days moving average here again. And I want to divert a little bit away today from day trading activities and how to potentially position yourself for, let's say, the little moves of 2, 3, 4, 5,000 US dollars in Bitcoins. I'm calling that little, that is our moves of up to 10 to 15%. But of course, Bitcoin puts a totally different scale and meaning to or definition to the word volatility out there. So we want to actually take a question by one of our viewers. So my regards go out there to Chameleon186. That was his username. He watched the show the other day and asked, I would like to know how to get a solid long-term perspective about Bitcoin, because there's so much information out there every day that keeps on pouring in. If you Google Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies on Google News, if you look on Twitter, if you follow on Reddit, there is so much information. Everybody has an opinion about that, and the spectrum goes from it's going to 1 million tomorrow to it's going to 0 to tomorrow, and he said, I have a very hard time of deciphering what of this information is complete and utter nonsense, and what information is out there that really might help me. And we at least want to try to clear that fog a little bit by showing you how I, with my 20 plus years experience of trading now, am trying to work long term when deciding on how to position myself in cryptocurrencies, especially in Bitcoin. So, as always, you know already what's coming now. We are going to start with looking at the fear and greed index. So this is always, no matter what the day is, the first thing I want to do. I'm looking how's the sentiment, how's the general public, let's say it like this, feeling at the moment about Bitcoin. And we are still obviously in the sentiment of greed. We were yesterday in the extreme greed. I said yesterday and the other day it would be very healthy if we see the sentiment coming a little bit back from extreme greed, at least to greed, or even better into the neutral area. And usually you will see this with a bit of lagging once the price goes down. So should we stay within the area here today, somewhere around the 200-day moving average, and this brownish Bollinger Band here, you can probably expect that the sentiment is going to be a little bit lower. Nonetheless, a sentiment of greed, for me at least, means for my daily trading activity, I'm talking about intraday trading now, I'm talking about shorter term trades that I maybe just want to hold for a couple of days to capture those miniature cycle moves. And a miniature cycle move is, for me at least, something like this, where we go down a couple of days in this. So I'm not talking about positions that I want to hold for a couple of months or even years or until eternity. So the typical behavior that one could probably call hodling out there, and everybody who has been engaged with Bitcoin at least knows what I'm talking about. So I expect really this to, I would be surprised if we pierce through this today, honestly speaking. So somewhere between this is the area, at least for my short-term trading activity, where I might consider looking for long positioning to kind of play the pullback potentially to 48, potentially to 49, or even 50,000. But this is just the short-term activity. Always be prepared for the unprepared with Bitcoin. So you gotta make sure, of course, also that you have a stop loss in case we pierce through this. But let's see how that plays out. I cannot tell you now where exactly I would position myself, because I really make this depending on the 5-minute, on the 15-minute charts, even down to 1-minute charts, if we should pierce down in this area. And for now, you see already that we've defended it. At least for now. So earlier we went down here as low as around about 46,500. Maybe that would have been a chance already. Let's see how it plays out. But normally those movement into one direction tend to not only be once and sudden. Normally it's like gradually through the day. And usually what we also see is that later in the day, when the Americans come in, we tend to have more of a bearish setup there. But let's see how that plays out. But yeah, coming back to the question that was asked by one of our viewers, how do I differentiate out there the nonsense information from the really valuable information? How do I get a picture on what the long-term developments in cryptocurrency prices, especially Bitcoin being the flagship still, is going to be? And I like to base that as much as possible on data. When you look long term, it's, in my opinion, not so much about opinion anymore. It's more of trying to build your hypothesis around solid data. And this solid data can be anything that you notice in terms of long-term patterns in the chart. Maybe you also notice, I'm quickly going to switch this to logarithmic charting here. Maybe you notice also like this, it seems like every 4 years, there's like a cycle of Bitcoin going up and down, and it seems like 1 year after the halving is always the phase where it goes into mania mode and the most up. So this is a hypothesis which you can test with the chart data that's available for everybody out there. There are other models, however. One of those I introduced a while ago already to you guys, for example, the stock to flow model. which was created in 2019 by a Twitter user that goes by the handle Plan B. So this guy does not want to show his real name, which I can fully understand because he's gotten a lot of media attention throughout the years. And probably he doesn't want everybody on the street to talk to him, because this model also has, as every model out there, because we're always talking about biased information here, even if it's backed up by data. Some people will like it, some people won't like it, some people will give him bad words about it, some people won't. And he, for example, is expecting a minimum of 100,000 US dollars within this current cycle of Bitcoin, which should occur somewhere between now and the end of the year, early next year. If we take 2017, I believe the high was mid-December or something like this. And there's a modification of this model also done by Plan B, which proposes up to 288,000 US dollars for this cycle. And without going into too much detail, what this model is all about, because we covered this in another show. If you haven't seen that show, please go back. If you're watching on YouTube, all the shows are archived, so you can get a better view on what this is all about. But what I want you to keep in the back of your head for now is here, okay, this is a model that proposes that there is going to be at least a doubling still in price for Bitcoin, and it's going to take place rather sooner than later. So with a minimum goal of 100,000 US dollars here. And then there's another model which I currently am reading into, and you can have also a view on this on Twitter. Goes by the username Year of a Bull, the golden ratio 1.681. So that's a Fibonacci number, if I'm not mistaken. The handle at misconfig_exe. And he is, as far as I can understand this model already, using like a mixture of something that looks like Elliott wave, so where you have like wave patterns that go in fives always, with the combination of golden ratio of Fibonacci numbers to determine where could be the top of a current cycle and where is the bottom. And he also is of the opinion that we should see a large, big move up to a new all-time high, which in his opinion, if I read this correctly, should be also somewhere between 150 and 250,000, if I'm not mistaken. But the important information also here that you see in this model is, and I think I want to zoom in. Can I zoom in a little bit here for you? So it's difficult. Okay, Twitter won't let me do that. So I hope you can see this still. Is that, in his opinion, we are currently at the bottom of what he calls the wave 4. And this is the last bottom, or the last macro bottom, long-term bottom, so to say. I'm not talking about those 3,000 to 4,000 microcycle moves we see in a daily or weekly trading activity. I'm really talking here about moves that are like 50%, 100%, or even a couple of 100%. And in his opinion, we are seeing currently the last bottom before Bitcoin goes and what he calls, I think, mania mode. So he is expecting, he's saying right now this should be a bear trap. In chart analysis, a bear trap means everybody is expecting things to go down further. And remember, we had this when we were at 30,000. Remember all those very smart analysts out there that said we are going to 20 now, we are going to 10 or 0, and it didn't happen. We broke out to the upside. So this is called a bear trap. And he says now we are probably going to enter the phase of an upswing, new all-time highs, somewhere that should be around, I think, 100,000 here, where Bitcoin will recapture media attention again. And I think he's onto something there, because if you look at Google search trends, and I've not prepared the graphic now for you here at the moment, but if you look at Google search trends, you will see that there's not so much searching going on Google for Bitcoin. So the general public, the media, is not really focusing on it. And this is kind of odd after a move from 30,000 to 50,000, which by all means was a move of 50%. So normally you would expect Bitcoin to get more attention again. And he thinks this attention is going to come again when Bitcoin hits 100,000. Then it will go a little bit lower again. Maybe retest the last all-time high at 65,000. And then we are going to enter the phase of greed. Same like 2017, where everybody wants to push into Bitcoin at once, where we saw this crazy candles from 10,000 to 20,000 just within a matter of days. And this is going to be the cycle top again. But again here, what is the same like in the Bitcoin stock to flow model is that according to those models, we should see an upswing in a large upswing actually in the near future. And this can be tomorrow, this can be in a couple of weeks, but we are not talking about 1 or 2 years down the line. Third model, and this one I just stumbled upon this morning, so I haven't really looked into this, but there was one thing that really kept my attention because this person, gentleman or lady, I don't know, who goes by the handle Kaleo or Kaleo, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, on Twitter, at CryptoKaleo, did an analysis in February 2019. So that was like more than 1.5 years ago. And I'm lying, 2020. So yeah, and he tried to draw out back then, so that was here, where what he thinks the pattern of Bitcoin, the price pattern will be. And if you compare this, the blue line, to how it really played out, here you see a lot of similarities. Of course, we cannot expect the real Bitcoin price to move exactly like he predicted here, he or she predicted here. But what you see is that the general assumption of Bitcoin going up and not pretty much going underneath this green line, which is probably his long-term bottom trend he's drawing in there, is pretty right. And for me, especially amazing if you look at this area here in 2020 or early 2021, or it was still 2020 parts of it. So his projection and the real price were very close. And also this model says we are about to go really parabolic and hit prices. I think this must be somewhere around 250,000 US dollars, where he or she predicts the top. And also here, he or she predicts that this top, this so-called mania phase, is going to come earlier than we are all expecting. And so these are three models. These are three models that are valued very high by the community. So we're not like talking about nutcracks here. Let me see this year of a bull. He has like 21,000 followers on Twitter, so that's not too bad. We have Kaleo, who has, damn, I closed it. Let me see if I find him again. Here we go. CryptoKaleo has 362,000 followers, and we have Plan B, who has probably something in with almost 700,000 followers right now. Crazy. So this is really paid a lot of attention to. And in my opinion, we are now at a fork in the road where we have traders have to decide, are we going to believe models like this? And in my opinion, it's not about believing. We can test it. So, and what we can do is, if we think those models are right, we should see within the next days, or maybe it's within the next weeks, please don't nail me on the time frame here, a large breakout to the upside. And the beauty of this is that you can always play something like this very, very good with so-called stop buy or stop sell orders. So what is that, a stop buy or stop sell order? If you, for example, And will try to highlight this. Please excuse me if my drawing skills are that of a 4-year-old. Really, my drawing skills came to a standstill after I left elementary school. The best I can draw are stick figures, but I'm still going to try to visualize it very much. So if we see this breakout to the upside, this volatility squeeze is probably going to be a little bit like what we saw back here. And you remember back then I said this looks like the Bollinger Bands are narrowing. It looks like we're going to have a catalyst where we are even going to break out to the upside or to the downside. And this is always indicated after a move when the Bollinger Bands go like a scissor. You can be pretty sure this is, at least in the daily time frame, in the higher time frames, a pretty solid indication that a move like this is going to at least continue for a while. And it did. And nonetheless, so this is something that could be happening here. I wouldn't be surprised if we see another couple of days or maybe even weeks. Maybe we are also talking about 2, 3, 4 weeks where we kind of go into this range between 44 or 46 and 15 with nothing really, maybe even down to 42 or 40 again, but not really much happening. Like really the market slowly dulling us in. And I think you know all those memes with where people say like, hey, do something Bitcoin, please. And what we could see then is a large, or what according to those models we should see is a large breakout to the upside. So what you could do, or what one could do, is place a stop buy order, for example, that says, hey, once Bitcoin crosses, for example, this area of somewhere around 53,000 or 54,000, I want to buy. I don't want to buy now. I want to wait until the price action of the market confirms that there is still potential to the upside. So that would be, where is my drawing tool, trend line tool, not this one, not looking for, Fibonacci looking for, here I'm looking for this. So somewhere in this area, maybe I want to place a stop buy order. And let me put some text in there. Stop buy order. So that means if a price goes above this area, I want to buy, for example, because the hypothesis behind this is we are going to see this breakout with a lot of momentum to the north, and this will show me that those 3 models I just introduced to you, the long-term models, are probably like the likelihood of them being right is at least then higher because they are somewhat confirmed that there was a big move. Now, but I also need to be prepared that things could happen to the downside. So if we see within the next few weeks a high momentum breakout to the downside, sorry, let me redo this here. A high momentum breakout to the downside, I could do the opposite. I could work here with a stop sell order and say something like, okay, if we break below this area, now we have to go more into detail again and analyze obviously where the best area for a stop buy or stop sell order could be. So this is of course just to visualize things for you, how you could go about a situation like this. And then you could place here a stop sell order. And by this, you could make sure that, first of all, if the 3 models I just introduced to you, stock to flow, the one with a golden ratio and the one from Carleo are correct, and we are breaking out to the upside, then you're not buying now, but you're buying when the breakout to the upside happens. And if they are correct and the final price of a cycle is somewhere between 100,000 or 300,000 US dollars, it doesn't really matter for you long term if you buy now or if you buy something like $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 higher. That with swings like this, it doesn't matter that much, but it gives you the security that if the breakout to the north happens there, that you can be sure that the likelihood of those models being correct is higher than it is still at the moment. This is a make or break it situation for a model like this. And we are also prepared if the models are incorrect. And we already saw the highest price of Bitcoin this year at 65,000. So the cycle is already over. And we are going to enter a bear market, for example, again. We are probably going to see also a quite substantial momentum move to the downside. And then we want to stand there at the side and be ready with a stop sell order to enter the market. Again, long term, in my opinion, except of course, if you are like a super long trader and you are buying Bitcoin because you never want to sell it again, or you want to hold it for the next 10, 20, 30 years, maybe pass it on to your kids as inheritance, then it's a whole different story. Then there's probably any price you could buy will eventually lead to a nice winning, at least if history repeats itself. And I don't think we have any, I personally don't have any doubt it will. But that's just my personal opinion, of course. But if you are more of a trader, or you are a person like me who says, okay, I have like 80% of my savings, I'm going to put in very long term positions, but 20% of my savings I want to utilize it then for trading, to try to capture those more short-term moves and try to time my moves more, because it's worthwhile doing that. And it's fun, of course, doing that as well. It's hard to find as much satisfaction as when you were correct with your analysis of a market. And the more often you do that, the more often you probably will be correct, at least if you're diligent and putting effort in it. And yeah, then this could be some really viable method to play this market, where we expect probably move to the upside, at least according to the models we were looking at in this show. But maybe if the models are not correct and we are seeing the momentum going to the downside again, we are going to enter both markets, but we are going to wait for things to happen. And this is really, really important. Trading, at least if you're not scalping intraday and trying to capture micro moves, so you're riding the 1 minute or 5 minute charts up and down. And don't get me wrong, this is totally viable as well. But if you are, let's say, a person that doesn't have like all the time in the world every day under his or her sleeves, because you are working in a job and that's for 8, 10 or 12 hours every day, Mondays to Fridays, or maybe even on the weekends. And then this is a strategy that you can prepare to still participate in the markets without the need of always having your laptop open, of always having your trading app running, up and running, and you're still going to enter the market if the move occurs. And it's important, the first lesson, and that for me personally was the hardest lesson when I was still younger. Lucky I'm now old already, and when you get older you tend to become more patient. But trading is about patience. Trading is about making a game plan. What do I expect to happen, and how do I want to play this out when it happens? Where do I enter the market? And also, where do I take my losses? So if I'm not right in this scenario, for example, we have the momentum to the upside, but it only goes until 56 or 58,000, and after this the market collapses again. Where do I take my losses? Where do I exit my position again? These are all the things you need to think about. You need to be patient. So do not try to anticipate every little move out there. Sometimes it's very wise also in those daily trading activities to either stay at the sidelines and not do anything, or what I really recommend to you, every now and then zoom out a little bit. Yeah, if I zoom in here, my God, this looks like huge huge moves. But if you zoom out and put it into perspective, what has happened already in Bitcoin, it's a whole different story. It's just a fraction of what has been happening over the years in Bitcoin. So with that being said, we are going to end this week's last episode of That Crypto Show. If something really out of the ordinary should happen tomorrow, of course, we are going to cover that as well. We are going to see each other again latest next Tuesday at 10 a.m. CT. If you want to get in touch with us, you can do so by either writing us an email under academy@primexpt.com. We are going to for sure answer your email. So there are no dumb questions. Ask whatever you have on your mind, and you're going to get an opinion from us about it. And if you're not doing so already, please follow us on Twitter under px_academy. And also, you can, of course, leave a comment here. If you're watching this later on, we're recording on YouTube, please leave a comment. Share your opinions about Bitcoin. Share your opinions about where the crypto market is going. We are always very, very happy, to engage in discussions with you and to get a new spin and new input of what other people out there obviously believe is going to happen. So that being said, have a great weekend ahead. Have a great Thursday first. Have a great Friday and a weekend ahead. And I am going to see you again next Tuesday. Always stay safe and remember to take a stop loss, to use a stop loss. And happy weekend. Goodbye.